On the 21st of July 1941, 9 raucous, overgrown speedboats, all painted grey, put to sea near New London Harbour in a Navy trial that would become the stuff of legend. This is the story of the famous Plywood Derby, which set the direction of PT boat development for decades to come. In the late 1930s, amidst a Great Depression, both in the USA and Germany, and with the world moving closer to the verge of war once again, all US service branches ramped up the development and production of weapons. The US Navy had never seen how torpedo boats could fit into their doctrine of fleet actions centered around battleships. The Navy had only looked at old homemade boats built for rum running during Prohibition and helped the Coast Guard with their initiatives to intercept them. On the other side of the world, in Manila circa 1935, MacArthur was trying to quickly prepare the Philippines for the upcoming war with Japan. He knew the Philippines could not afford a large navy and cast about for solutions. What he thought would be most useful would be a fleet of smaller boats that could protect Manila until the US Pacific Fleet could sail there from the west coast to intervene. One Sidney Huff started to float the idea of the US Navy building such boats for the Philippines, being unimpressed with the European designs of the time. At the same time, one Admiral Land was trying to get a patrol boat program started with the idea of getting one prototype built by the Navy and one by a private boatyard. By sheer luck, both of these efforts coincided and started to get some attention. When the Navy had become interested in motor torpedo boats in the past, the two biggest snags were the cost of development and their strategic purpose. Now that they had a purpose in mind, thoughts swung to the development problems. The initial proposal from the General Board was to develop 2 classes of boat. A 60-foot class that could be designed on the US Navy's dime and transported to theater by fleet ships, and an 80-foot class to be built with the funds of the government of the Philippines. However, when MacArthur's office mentioned the development price tag would be $500,000 pesos, the Philippine government balked and the idea was dropped. Come 1938, it became clear that the US would inevitably be pulled into the war, and so Roosevelt passed the Naval Expansion Act, increasing spending by 20%, and Public Law 528 provided $3 million for a motor torpedo boat program. 2 70 to 80-foot designs were funded, plus a further 2 54-foot boats, plus a 110-foot submarine chaser. On July 11, 1938, the Navy sponsored a design contest for the 3 boat classes, giving the requirements for each, stating a top speed of at least 40 knots for both, a cruising range of 550 nautical miles for the bigger boat, and a displacement limit of 20 tons for the smaller one. They were all to be capable of carrying 21-inch torpedoes and at least 250 caliber machine guns. Hearing about this contest, ELCO President Henry R. Sutphen decided the European designs in vogue at the time ought to be far superior to anything the startups could come up with. After a visit to Europe, ELCO procured a high-speed speedboat from the British Powerboat Company. Sutphen got an agreement from the Navy to buy the Scott-Paine boat from ELCO once they had reverse-engineered the boat design and utilized this design for its 40-ton PT boat submission. I guess intellectual property wasn't such a big deal in those days. Speedboat racer Hubert Scott-Paine's design had initially been developed as an advanced speedboat measuring 70 feet from bow to stern. The boat was named PT-9 in September. Higgins won the design contest for the 80-foot class and was the first company to be awarded a contract to build one. The design was based on a 70-foot design from Sparkman and Stevens, the resulting boats being named PT-5 and 6. Fogel Boat Works of Miami had won the 56-foot class, and their PTs 1 through 4 were also built. Not to be left out, the Navy came with two of their own designs which were built at the Philadelphia Naval Yard. They were numbered PT 7 and 8, with PT 8 having an aluminum hull. Whilst all of the above were serviceable naval craft in their own right, the group lacked the performance and capabilities that the Navy sought from a motor torpedo boat. Though the boats performed very well, the Navy was not fully satisfied with the ELCO 70-foot offering, as they lacked the necessary deck space to mount the standard 21-inch torpedoes then in use. Additionally, the short-ish hull length of the Scott-Paine PT-9 had shown itself to suffer in rough open ocean environments. Going back to ELCO, the Navy ordered a further 11 boats to be built on the Scott-Paine design, extended to 77 feet. The Navy specified the use of 3 Packard marine gasoline engines of 1,200 horsepower each, as well as revised crew areas. ELCO decided to also stiffen the hull and deck and revise the propellers for extra thrust. The Packard engines had been developed at the request of the Navy for this exact purpose. These vessels entered US Navy service in November of 1940. Huckins, meanwhile, had rethought the design of PT-6 while building it, and had tweaked the design into a longer one they thought better, and rushed to build a new prototype on their own dime. At this point in time, the newly appointed Chief of Naval Operations, one Admiral Harold R. Stark, ordered the Board of Inspection and Survey to conduct comparative service trials and decide which design to standardize as soon as possible. In the test, the new boat designs were to be submitted from ELCO, Higgins and Huckins, as well as the Navy's own offerings. The final group of 9 boats entered into the competition, measured between 70 and 81 feet in length, and were to be trialed through various exercises, including operations out in open sea. This event came to be known historically as the first Plywood Derby, and should have decided the true winner of the lucrative Navy PT boat contract in a simple elimination match.
The following boats were tested off of New London Harbour from the 21st to the 24th of July 1941. PT-6. This is a stretched Sparkman and Stevens design, 81 feet long, built by Higgins, powered by 3 Packard 1200 horsepower engines. PT-8. This one designed and built by the Philadelphia Navy Yard at 81 feet, featuring an aluminum hull and 2 Allison 2000 horsepower engines, plus 1 Holland Scott 550 horsepower engine. PT-20. This is an ELCO design based on the Scott-Paine boat, lengthened to 77 feet. This was beefed up with the deck and hull being reinforced. It had 3 Packard engines with the throttle stops removed from the controls and the rev limit raised from 1800 to 2250 RPM. Finally, larger 28-inch propellers being fitted. PT-30, another 77-foot ELCO design with a standard hull, the same 3 Packard engines, standard propellers, but also with the throttle stops removed and the rev limit raised. PTs 31 and 33. Standard 77-foot ELCO design, no modifications. PT 69, Huckins build and design, 72 feet long, 4 Packard engines. PT 70, Higgins designed and built, 76 feet long, 3 Packard engines. Finally, the British Sparkman and Stevens 70-foot boat, built by Higgins, with 3 Hull Scott 900 horsepower engines, entered for comparison to PT-70. The first day of tests were taken up with the thorough inspections of each boat that assessed the habitability, accessibility, and military character of each boat. On the second day, they ran the boats over a measured mile at light and heavy loads and tested their maneuverability. To aid in accuracy, an airship was used to photograph each boat, making 2 full circles, hard port and starboard, with the photographs being analyzed to measure their turning circles. The PT-20 was loaded with dummy torpedoes to accurately indicate their performance with a combat loadout. The other boats were just loaded with random ballast in approximate locations to the approximate load. All the boats were then measured over a measured mile at several different engine speeds. The final drill was to be a flat-out open sea race of 190 nautical miles, forever after referred to by PT personnel and fans alike as the Plywood Derby. The course started around New London Harbour at Sarah Ledge, out through the channel there and around the east side of Block Island. From there, straight along the coast of Long Island, around the Fire Island lightship, and right back again. All of this coastline faces the open Atlantic, but this day was pleasant with a light breeze blowing and moderate swells. The coast of the area from Montauk Point down to Fire Island is also treacherously shallow, and going aground a real concern. The finish line was at Montauk Point Whistling Buoy, the east tip of Long Island. Remember, the ELCO boat could only go about 6 hours on full fuel tanks, consuming around 3,000 gallons of high-octane aviation fuel in that time, so this race was clearly designed to serve as a real test of endurance. The destroyer Woolsey shadowed the race in support. Only 6 boats finished the race. PT-70 was damaged and dropped out, as did PT-33. The British boat was out after just a few minutes with engine trouble. At the completion of the trials, the Navy pondered the top 3 designs. In the measured mile, the ELCO PT-20 had been the fastest at 44.1 knots. The Huckins PT-69 was close at 43.8 knots. The Higgins PT-70 being third at 41.2 knots. No other boat broke 40 knots. They knew the boats were fast on a calm day, but not in significant seas. The tightest turning radius was shown by the Huckins PT-69, with the Higgins PT-6 in second place, and the Navy Yard's own PT-8 in third. The ELCO PT-20 actually came in last on this test, though this was offset by it having the lightest controls of the bunch. In the Plywood Derby, the open sea race, the ELCO 77-foot PT-20 with its modified hull and trick propellers came in first with an average speed of 39.72 knots, easily bettering the Huckins 72-foot PT-69 at 33.83 knots, and the Higgins 76-footer PT-70 at 31.4 knots. The shorter boats, like the Sparkman and Stevens 70-footer, were obviously having a harder time on the open sea. All boats were damaged to some degree during the event. PT-70 had the worst damage because the ballast used to simulate load moved around during the race, putting loads onto areas not designed to take them. Andrew Higgins protested the results because of this sloppiness, and the Navy agreed, for their own reasons, to give Higgins enough time to repair PT-70 and rerun the race. Accordingly, a second derby was held 2 weeks later on August 12th.
It is happening again.
This time, a total of 6 boats lined up at the start line. The Higgins British boat was back. 2 standard ELCO 77-footers, PT-21 and 29. The 72-foot Huckins PT-69 and the Higgins PT-70. In the rerun, the almost new destroyer Wilkes raced alongside, crossing the start line with its steam turbines at full power already, never dropping revs over the entire course. This time all boats were fitted with proper dummy weapons to please the builders. To the joy of the Navy, the weather was this time atrocious, with wind around force 4 gusting up to force 6, and waves 6 to 8 feet, but occasionally as large as 12 feet. Going flat out offshore for nearly 7 hours in bad weather, a 4,000 horsepower speedboat has to be as uncomfortable as it is exciting, and several crew members were in fact injured in the event. In this second outing, the Huckins 72-foot PT-69 was so badly damaged it could not complete the course. The Wilkes won with an average speed of 29.3 knots, crossing the line just 25 minutes before the first PT boat, a mere 2.5 knots faster. PT-21 was the fastest PT boat at 27.5 knots, winning round 2. Behind it was PT-70 at 27.2 knots. PT-8 and PT-29 were tied at 25.1 knots, but the 29 boat had been ordered to pace the 8 to measure G-forces in the same conditions. The Sparkman and Stevens 70-foot boat was dead last, coming in at 24.8 knots.
The Navy was most impressed with the performance of the faster boats in such bad weather. The board now believed that the boats could last longer in rough weather than the crews. The board concluded that it appears that for the assigned mission, modern destroyers possess no sensible advantage over motorboats, even under sea conditions highly unfavorable for the latter, and that in areas where limited visibility is not unusual, the motorboats might readily prove much more adaptable than the larger vessels within the limitations of their operations range. The brass decided to reward the builders of the fastest 3 boats with contracts for their efforts. The Bureau of Inspection and Survey determined that the ELCO, Huckins, and Higgins PT boats were acceptable for immediate production, with a few modifications requested. In the suggested changes, an emphasis was put on improving the boat's ability to ride out rough seas, specifically the ELCO boat, whose hull shape created an extremely crashy ride. The boats had performed masterfully in the rough seas during the races, but they suffered structural damage that needed to be remedied before mass production began. The tests also concluded that the Packard marine engine was satisfactory for use in all 3 designs. For more info on that engine, please click the link above. ELCO received the largest share of the orders with a contract for 350 boats. Higgins was awarded an order for 199 boats. Huckins was awarded a contract for a mere 18 boats, having failed to complete the course in the second race. The Huckins design was also expensive, having 4 engines versus 3. The Navy's own PT-8 had done poorly overall and was a staggering 3 times the price of either the ELCO or Higgins boats. As we know, all 3 companies went on to build many more, progressively larger and better equipped boats for the Navy, so it all paid off for them in the end. Packard did well too, supplying more than 12,000 engines of this type for all of them. So, what happened to these PT pioneers? PT-6 was sold to the Royal Navy in 1940. PT-8 never saw action and was scrapped before the war ended, but the hull is in private hands until the present day. PT-9 was transferred to the Royal Canadian Navy in 1941. PT-69 served as a coastal patrol boat during the war and passed into civilian hands afterwards. Fate after 1961 is unknown. PT-70 also went into coastal patrol service until the end of the war and was decommissioned and sold off in 1946. PT-20, winner of the first Derby, was in action at the attack on Pearl Harbor and again at the Battle of Midway, raceboat turned warship. PT-21, seen here being inspected at Pearl Harbor, was in the first squadron to fight in the Solomons and was decommissioned in 1943 as obsolete. PT-29 saw action defending Pearl Harbor and again at Midway, finally going to the Aleutians. PTs 30, 31, and 33 joined the famous Squadron 3 of John D. Bulkley at Cavite, Philippines. And if you don't know their fates already, then please click on the link to the left. As always, thanks for watching. Please give us a like and subscribe.